This is Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast, a podcast about, you guessed it, nonprofit fundraising. This isn't the first podcast about it, but definitely not like any others you've listened to. This is a podcast for fundraisers, by fundraisers. No boring charts or the same stale best practices you've heard for years. No ideas that only work in theory here. No concepts from people who aren't in the same trenches as you are every single day. Each week, you'll get practical strategies and tips to craft messages that engage donors and raise more money. This isn't smoke and mirrors. Everything has been pressure tested in the real world. Plus, you can start using them as soon as the episode ends. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Thomas and Steve Thomas.
Hello. Welcome to Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. This is episode 19. Don't thank your donors. I'm Ryan Thomas, Vice President at Oneicity.
And I'm Steve Thomas.
We do actually talk about the episode titles beforehand, but this would be a good one to have sprung on you.
Yeah, this is
advance.
great. Well, I'm totally behind this. Yeah. I think you just ought to stop it.
You just don't think. Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop.
Bob Newhart.
Oh, wow, Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Got the old guy reference. We started this podcast because if you're in this work, you know that it doesn't stop. There's no clock in, clock out. There's no end of the week, work week versus weekend. You're thinking about fundraising all the time. And in our cases, talking about it.
What a shocker.
All the time. And we got kicked out of some barbecues and some, social events because we were boring. But that's just because they're not in this work and they're stupid. So they don't know what they're talking about. So we realized we already had a podcast. We just weren't recording it. So now we are. And welcome to our TED Talk.
And so far,
Thanks.
The audience is about the same size.
Yeah, please clap. Oneicity's a boutique ad agency, and we're focused on fundraising and marketing for nonprofits and any stand-up comedy needs that our clients may have.
Yeah.
We could do a tight 5 just real quick, or a tight 55 sometimes.
We haven't actually proved we can do a tight 5.
We could do a tight hour 5. And that our company's been around for more than a decade.
Yep.
Our team measures a lot of their time in this industry in multiple decades. I always mix that up, but we got that right. And if you are going to send us a 3.5, 4, or 5-star review, do that on wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you are listening. Give us a 5-star review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe, as the kids say. It's kind of down over here. Yeah. Got to turn my left, your left. Yeah. If you have any questions, send those to podcast@oneicity.com. We'd also take constructive criticism.
Yeah, I think so.
Heavy on constructive.
And we'll be the judge of whether it's constructive or mean.
If it ends up in the trash, it was a little more criticism than constructive. And 2 episodes ago, I think we did the mailbag.
Yeah.
So your questions don't fall on deaf ears or a deaf inbox.
But we will protect your identity, and we don't read email addresses out. If your question gave away a lot about your organization, we'd adjust it. Yeah.
This is Dragnet.
Yeah.
Names have been changed.
2 old school references from
Nick
you.
at Night, man.
You got a good education.
Nick at Night.
So impressed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about why you shouldn't thank your donors. We're going to get to that.
Yeah, can't wait.
But first, we're going to start by talking about something that you and I have seen in the wild. We call it mail call, something we've seen. This is fundraising that we've encountered and want to sometimes critique, sometimes laud, but in general, just take 5 or 10 minutes and talk about something work-related.
Yeah.
So you go first. I think I went first last week.
All right. This is a piece of direct mail that we received that is, and I'm going to do a first for me.
Whoa.
Okay. I'm going to connect this with the You Should Be Doing segment.
Oh, So another way you could tell we don't do this, we don't talk about this live, is had I known that, you'd have gone second and you would have segued us into that.
Well, then just go.
No,
okay. Go.
All right, fine.
No, well,
it's fine. So I got an email, and I presume that there was also direct mail attached to that. But
like integrated.
Yeah, I assume is integrated,
Yeah.
but I'm not on their direct mail file. Different states, so they may not be registered. All sorts of reasons. Anyway, and it was really interesting, and I know we've done and talked about this with clients before, but I've only seen this really in person a couple times, and it said, "Hi, Ryan, I'm adjusting for our Sloth in protecting anonymity. We're looking to expand our Sloth playground facility in the next 12 months to account for the increase in young sloths who are coming to us."
So you've adapted that to...
Yeah, there's no real sloth thing.
Yeah. As far as
But
I
it
know.
won't be cheap.
They actually say that?
They said it won't. It will cost a lot.
Okay.
But there's going to be... It's expensive to do this.
Yeah.
So we're looking for key leaders to donate gifts of $1,000 or more to help create a matching gift fund.
Oh, nice.
That will then encourage more people to give.
Nice.
A few episodes back, we should start keeping a list. We talked about matches, and we talked about using a match, and one of the really effective things about it isn't just that you get that one-to-one match, but that you start getting people who wouldn't normally come into the fold except, that I can really have an impact. And if you don't have a match because they don't grow on trees, you can just go make a match by going to donors of a certain size and asking them to help you create it.
Yeah.
And by making it, not that their ask wasn't, "Hey, give us $1,000. It was, "Hey, give us $1,000 because we're going to use it to create this big fund that is then going to have a much larger impact than your $1,000 would anyway."
That's such a great idea.
So
We've done that with a few clients, and it always not only works on however you go out and go forward with the match, but you build great relationships with these donors who have got to be a part of something they've never gotten to be a part of before.
yeah, and even if there are some people who at that point, for whatever reason, couldn't give the $1,000, they're now already pre-positioned to be interested in your initiative.
Good. Yeah.
And
that's
with
great.
some clients, we've had people who have come back 6 months later and said, "Hey, I can give to that special thing now.
ready."
Is that still open? Can I still get in on that?" And it's just so fun to create something that donors are just excited to come track you down and say, "Hey, will you still take my money?" The answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
In theory. That's right. That's
All right,
great.
so take us across the bridge.
Oh, okay. So I'll let you do the segue into the segment the you should be doing. So this is a piece of direct mail, and they are a pretty active direct mailer. They have a pretty significant.
I'll just tell you, they're an active emailer too.
Yeah. I'm not on the email list. So one of the things that's interesting is that they're using, I'm holding a regular standard number 10 envelope. They're using a big window, and that's the window that not just reveals the address, my address they're mailing to.
It goes almost full width.
Yeah, it uses all but
A thumb's width of the envelope.
Yeah, the half inch on either side, and most vertical, enough for the stamp. And they put a message beside this, and so we get Steve and Chris and the address and logo, but over on the
right hand side,
the driver's side, right, they have a message that gives it's pretty much a condensed version of what the whole letter is asking for, which is a good strategy. So. First, I want to say these pieces always look like this. They just basically follow this format. They look like this. They're this way.
Do you mean from this organization?
From this organization. Yep. Thank you. And so one of the things that occurred to me, we talked about contrast about an episode or two back, and one of the things that I would suggest is just every other time, every third or fourth time, rather than doing it as you have done it, and I've seen this on multiple direct mail impacts I've received in the mail, shift to handwriting, shift to an arrow. We talked about how interesting an arrow, a hand drawn arrow will make your eye. It just changes how you see it. Over and over again, they have done this mailing with this message over on to the far right of our address, and you know what it is. You do it. Everyone would read it more closely and see it more completely if they shifted one time to handwriting. If they shifted,
because what you're doing with this is you're reading to make sure it first is your mail.
Yep.
You're checking your address block.
Yep.
And then you kind of look over to the right, but not really, because you know what's there.
It's been not exactly. Well, it seems like exactly that message over and over and over again. So, just adjust the things you do. If you always put handwriting in that upper right block on the letter so that people see it, shift it to away from handwriting into a straight up font. If you always do it in black, do it in a color. Just an adjustment. You don't want to change every time, because that may freak people out. They may not be able to follow you along. It may violate your branding.
But the reason is you want to break a pattern. You want consistency is great, but a pattern is bad.
Yeah.
Because a pattern is predictable,
if
and
you
our
become
brains just wash that
predictable, you
away.
become invisible. So here is what's the next segment?
So the next segment,
Because
we've been doing this 19 times, so you'd think you'd know.
I do know.
That was a lob. I thought that was a legitimate question.
Come on.
Second segment
I got my
is
notes here.
something you should be doing if you're not already.
Yeah.
Very actionable fundraising. You can put this into practice right now, or as soon as the episode is over. Not like the validation that we're talking about, don't thanking your donors. That takes a while to do.
Yeah.
This doesn't take a while to do, or shouldn't if he's brought his homework correctly. I don't know what you're doing, so it may take a while. This may not be the right thing.
Yeah, I don't know. So back to this letter I was talking about. I saw this letter before it came in the mailbox. Not in a dream.
Okay.
Not in my crystal ball. Are you familiar with informed delivery?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not where I was going. Dang it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't.
Let's go.
Okay. So informed delivery is a post office USPS service that you can sign up, and they will email you pictures of the theoretical today's delivery. And so when this arrived, I had already seen it in an email. So you should be try this. If you always do a stealth envelope, and by that I mean you don't put a message on your envelope, and there are good reasons to
Just
do
your
that.
address block.
Yeah. The good
Or
reasons
nothing.
to do that. One of the things to consider. So I wasn't terribly familiar with informed delivery until we moved to Texas, and as part of that move, somehow or another, Chris decided to sign us up for it. Marketing math, 22%, there's 122 million households in the U.S.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Right? There are 39 million people signed up for informed delivery. 39 million households. So that works out to about a third of the United States. And we'll just extrapolate. A third of the people you could be mailing will be seeing your direct mail in an email from the post office.
And to be clear, just the envelope. They don't open it and walk you through.
I kind of thought that was what they were going to do at first, and I thought that'd be a clever service. So one of the reasons to put a message on the OE on the outer envelope is it sticks in people's minds. And when I saw this envelope come in in the email, I thought, well, there they are again with that same orange
Here they
font.
are.
Yeah. Well, which then made me think, oh, I need to talk about that too. So a reason we've never talked about out loud about why to do this is, in theory, a third of the people you're mailing will be seeing it in email.
They'll be scrolling
the
through.
front of the outer envelope. And it's worth testing and considering, and you can do that now, putting a message. We do it a variety of strategies. You play with that. Well, maybe we'll talk about that at some point. But it allows for you to begin the number of impressions you need to influence the donor's behavior. It allows you to do that before it ever arrives in a mailbox, which I just find that immensely cool.
Yeah, and if that makes it even more important to not become a pattern, because that could be very easy for someone to scroll through that and think, okay, none of that, I've got to check the mail today. I can grab it and toss it right in the dumpster.
I hadn't even thought about it that way, but you're 100% right. If somebody says, oh, I know what that's going to say, and they may never even give you a chance.
And especially if everything else around it is stuff they don't need, they know I can grab mailbox and straight into the dumpster.
There you go.
That's really good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Just connected the dots.
Well, and you bridge digital and direct mail. You analogged
the full package.
You did the full package. 360 degrees. Ooh. Mine is anything you do, whether it's cultivation, a test, a new thing, an old thing, your regular thing, whatever it is, plan now or plan in advance when you're going to check the results. If it's cultivation, if it's your regular fundraising, decide in advance when you're going to check in on how that's going. And people can be pulling those results and those numbers all the time, monthly, weekly, or whatever. But you as the fundraiser, marketing, development, shouldn't be looking at it too often, nor never. So don't look at it never, because if you don't ever look, you won't know if what you're doing, if your general vibe, if your themes aren't working. But if you look at it weekly or daily, you are going to be just
absolutely
you're going to be hammered
nuts.
by the swings.
Yeah.
I know a client who there's a period of time in the year that looks at their results daily. And fortunately for me, they don't contact me and say,
Tuesday wasn't good.
The day before the event did not go like the day before the event last year, and we have a problem.
Yeah.
And if you plan in advance, this kind of calls back to my thing last week on our last episode about your fundraising should be emotional, not your decisions.
Yeah, that's good.
Plan now when you're going to check on your results, because then you're doing it with a cool head and you're not checking. And then at a point where, well, now we're just going to make an emotional decision because I randomly checked it, didn't look good. So we're scrapping everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even if you can't scrap everything, you just feel awful that day because the post office or
it was slow. Yeah, there's all sorts of variables.
Well, and unfortunately, you get that kind of those swings in digital as well, driven less by external circumstances, but there are just some winds that blow, and you never know.
Yep. And you need to trust your team, your ideas, your strategies that over a fiscal year, over 12 months, your stuff is going to work.
Yeah.
And there's a line from, remember the Titans, the football movie.
Oh, yeah.
They're making fun of Denzel Washington, a coach, his offense, and it's not working well at first. And he says, just wait. It's like Novocaine. Just give it time. It'll work. And he's trusting that over 4 quarters and over 10 weeks of a season, it's going to work out. This quarter may be bad. This quarter may be great. This whole game may suck. But if you take a whole macro view, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. And we have a lot of both clients and people in our tribe who are people of faith. And that adds an element of trust. That's another reason not to walk down the hall and ask how many gifts did we get today. Just let it play out. Let it play out.
No.
Oh, that's great. I made myself absolutely nuts when I was CEO in a nonprofit because I walked down the hall every day to see how big the mail tray was, and oh man, that's just you can't ride those swings.
No,
that's great. Good for you.
You won't survive.
Yeah, good for you.
So now we're to hopefully the exciting part where we tell you not to thank your donors. And
Don't have to say more than that.
yeah, we're done. We've talked about it a little bit on this podcast before. We've alluded to it, and we haven't really unpacked it in this way. And we're gonna kind of look at it as a macro view and then a micro view, similar to what we did with Leader Voice, and make this into a two-parter. But don't thank people, because when I ask for a Coke and you hand me a Coke, I say thanks.
Yeah.
And then we're done.
Yeah.
But that's not really the extent of what we want a donor organization relationship to be. And nobody gives another gift because you said thank you.
No, not at all.
People give again because they feel good and they know that what they did mattered. And that happens when they feel validated, which is is both simple and complicated. It's like the Karate Kid. I mean, this is both.
Wax on and wax off?
It is literally that simple, but it is also literally that complicated.
Yeah. Well, and let's just zoom out a bit in the macro view and say this is not about cultivating a donor for their gift. This is not about finding a new donor. This is about maintaining a donor relationship. And a donor relationship is what you ought to always be going for. We talk a lot, and I'm glad we do, because we are results driven. As we talk about income, we talk about revenue, we talk about things that work. One of the things that underpins that I'm glad we're talking about is that donor relationships are what make all of those work long term. Back to your don't check your results every day. Donor relationships and making these things happen over time is built on donors learning who you are as an organization, learning who you are as a leader, the asker, being in that process, and you find the way to make the message work that way.
Because if I decide, okay, I've got to make this October appeal go gangbusters, I've got to just turn that dial up.
Yeah.
Going out of business sale.
Well, or I've got a puppy and it's gonna die tomorrow. Yeah.
I can manipulate and make that month, that appeal, that email. I can make that raise a lot of money.
That moment.
That time.
Yeah.
But I can't do that, as you said, over 12 months without a relationship.
Well, and we talked about all of what we considered the excesses of the starving children, starving puppies, all of those kind of things that lead people almost to not want to look at your material or to hear from you, because who needs that pain?
It's too much of a bummer.
Exactly. Something else to think about is donor retention. One of the reasons donors don't continue to give to an organization is because they have been thanked. I mean, everyone thanks. Thanking, you always talk about table stakes, the basics, the minimum. Everyone says thank you.
But let's talk about retention, because retention is people who gave in 2020.
Right.
What percentage of those donors are going to stay donors, are going to give you a gift in 2021? Yeah. So a lot of our clients, maybe a lot of you, had a great year in 2020. Set all-time highs in gift count, income, all that stuff. How many of those people are going to stay with you this year?
Exactly.
And that percentage is retention.
Exactly. And then the other thing to consider is how many people were new donors. And many, as you say, many people, many organizations added lots of new donors. Well, how do you get them to give a second gift?
Because we say you're not a donor until you've given 2 gifts.
Yeah.
Because I can put my foot in the water with a lot of people, but if you get my money twice, It's not a mistake. It was on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like you.
So anyway, this moving past thank you is the idea of saying, and we talk about it as validation primarily. I like saying feedback as well. So let's just kind of lay it out. So thank you is the acknowledgement. Yeah, you get a gift. Thanks. Good job. That's a quick piece. But this idea of validation is, and I clearly don't have a great way of phrasing this. I don't have the pithy language that.
It's a good thing we're not doing this on a podcast.
Yeah, well, we're doing this in front of friends. So moving past the thank you, what did you talk to the donor about? What did the donor in their minds, what do they give to? And that's your place, your angle. So I do have 3 R's, okay? So report, okay, results, and remind. Okay. So you want to report to the donor, yes, your gift of $100 for the Sloth playground was received, and we are putting it to work right now. And bang, there it goes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and then maybe results would be, after the playground got built, we ended up with about, there were 50 sloths, little sloth guys fighting to get in there, or whatever your
Here's a picture.
Was. Yeah, there you go. And then you remind the donor of why. Why did they give? And so many times when someone is first kind of wrapping their heads around this, it's really powerful to be able to talk to them about, okay, here's what you need to do is you need to think about what was your actual appeal? What did you talk to them? What was the ask? What consequences was the donor trying to mitigate? What were they?
And you're talking about when they gave.
Yeah, when they gave. Then you say, what can I tell the donor about that their gift made the difference?
Because you've got that intelligence, literal intel, not brain intelligence.
Well, no,
I mean, I don't know, one of the two. To know, okay, they gave, everybody's databases are different, but in some way you can tell when their gift came in and about what fundraising hit, if not exactly what fundraising hit. And off of that, you can tell what you were talking to them about, which is half the battle in coming back to them.
Exactly. And let's then to remind ourselves, competitive landscape for messaging and marketing, competitive fundraising landscape. It seems like everybody is fundraising. If you want to stand out, you can't do the minimums. Nope. You can't do table stakes. And so the organizations that I have seen that have gotten their arms around this, they are as focused on how they are validating the donor's giving decision and the feedback as they are on the ask. And that's a big change.
Which you should be. I mean, obviously, or else we wouldn't be doing this episode. But
trying to make the case.
We've talked before about the warm feeling, the warm glow psychologically we get when we do something good.
Right.
And it happens when we give a gift. When a donor gives a gift, they feel good doing it. When you validate them, you're extrapolating that feeling that they had in that minute that they're writing their check or they're going through your giving form, they're mailing it, and you're repeating it a few times in a year.
Yeah.
So that they continue to feel just about when they're forgetting about you, maybe you bring it back up and like, oh, I love them.
Yeah. Yeah. The work they're doing is...
That's so great.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk next time about the tactics and how we do this. So let's just say one of the things that is tempting is to throw out a bunch of numbers and to talk about...
Nothing gets my heart going like numbers.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wow, we met our budget. The thermometer filled up.
We ended the year on firm financial ground.
Yeah, episode back. Anyway, so... resist that urge. If and sometimes in bigger organizations, you have to deal with some money people and some numbers people. And so they just say, no, you have to tell how many more sloths, meals, you got to give us that count. Fine. Give that count. And then zoom in on an individual, zoom in on a situation, get into the as low a denominator as you can manage in this. And we've talked about packing emotion into messaging. This is a place to pack emotion. This is another place to go at it.
And every time you mention this, because again, we'll talk about the how next week, but just know that this isn't something that you decide, oh, okay, we should probably do something where we validate. You wouldn't say, oh, we should probably write an appeal this month.
Yeah.
And
it's part of the planning process.
Yeah,
right?
you should plan and treat this validation just as importantly and valued to you as a team as you would your asks and your thank you and receiving.
Yeah. And there can be layers and levels to this so that you have sort of mass general kinds of feedback and validation and very specific feedback and validation.
There are lots of ways to mix it up. And again, we'll get to the how next week, but there are ways to do it where it's not as hard as it sounds, but it seems to a donor like you spent so much time on this, but it really was just part of the plan and part of the day that you did it.
And if it is done well, it is part of the exchange you're really trying to do when you say thank you.
Because it's not that we hate those words.
No, not at all. It's just those words are not enough. And those words are social construction.
Think about how many times you say thank you when you're out in public.
Yeah. And I've heard people equate it to writing thank you notes, and I play with that in the book a little bit. The key is that thank you is not the appropriate response for someone who gives a gift to a nonprofit that is trying to change the world. It's just not. What is the appropriate response is you can use those words. Thank you. Your gift did this. You can feel confident that your gift was the right thing to do because of this. This happened because of your gift.
You should sleep better tonight because someone got to sleep in a bed tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of your gift.
Exactly. And sometimes, I was going to talk about some specific tactics, but that's for on the next week's card. So,
but I think it's important to say that it is likely that if not everyone on your team listens to this podcast, which they should, if not, I mean, either fire them or give them the RSS feed. You could run into some pushback because doing this isn't free. There's not a way to do this without doing something extra.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't all have to be big money extra.
No,
right?
But you're going to have somebody who says, we're already sending way too much mail.
Yeah,
We're already sending way too much email. We can't do any other touches at all unless you can put ROI on that.
Yeah.
And
here's a way I can put some ROI on it is the clients that we serve that do this validation well, and all of our clients are doing it
to some level,
in their way, without question, have far higher than national averages on retention and far higher than national averages on second gifts from first-time donors. That's just a fact. And much like other things, when everybody is doing that and everybody's results are different, this is one of the things that's going on and one of the things that makes it work. And so it is well worth the consideration of putting that together.
Yeah, it's not easy, takes time, but nobody's leaned in and done it and said, okay, that sucked. We're not going to do that again.
Yeah. Well, and here's one of the things to think about is we say that don't say thank you just to kind of alarm you.
It's kind of clickbait. Hey,
so,
we got to get you to open this envelope.
Come on, open this envelope. But yes, say thank you. Say those two words all you want. But if those are the only two words you say, or the only two words you're putting your focus on, or once you say, we said thank you, that's enough. That's not enough. Now, and then next week we'll talk about all the places you can do this that do nothing but accelerate your fundraising. So the takeaway for this segment is consider how you can validate and feed back to your donors, because it will require a little bit of thought. But here's the cool thing: it's an easy connector if you're doing good work.
Yeah, if you are doing good work, which 90% of people out there are.
Anybody listening to this
is doing good work. It's not a struggle to do it. It just is thinking around a different corner than you're used to. So in the next 7 days, think about some ways you might validate some language. And then when we meet next week on our next bat channel, we will...
That's three old.
That's 3 in a row. It's a trifecta.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll talk about how, and then that hopefully that's going to be something that people have questions and hit us in the mailbag for.
I love that you use mailbag rather than inbox.
Yeah, I don't know. It has I think it's a radio carryover.
I can imagine Pony Express.
Yeah, it's a big lump of mail. We should do that since we're doing video. Just print them out and pull them out. And then maybe the next one we do, we'll just do blind.
Okay.
They will be sealed and nobody knows.
That'd be great.
So On Your Radar is our next segment, and its genesis, its birth, its start was with you and me passing things back and forth. We both like to read interesting things, and our Venn diagram overlaps, but not so much that we see the exact same things. And so we would, send something, hey, you got to read this. You got to check this out. This ought to be on your radar. And sometimes it's fundraising related, sometimes it's not. But if you're sitting at our table, we want to let you know about this cool article if you haven't read it in Rolling Stone or whatever it is.
Whatever.
So mine's really good. So I'm going to go second.
Oh, okay.
Because that's just how I roll. Yeah, I'm going to call my shot.
That's good. Okay, so mine. I've mentioned the author. I don't have all to describe him. He's an author, James Clear, jamesclear.com. Does a newsletter. I appreciate what he writes. He says something that I took to heart, and will share is it's impossible to get better and look good at the same time. This is a quote from an author and a writing teacher, Julia Cameron. Impossible to get better and look good at the same time. And one of the things that I wanted to do two things. One is to say, one of the things that you and I are doing here on this podcast and the video is, we're trying to figure this out and doing it sort of in front of people in theory.
Yeah, there's no net.
There's no net whatsoever. And you've led us to the place of committing to we're going to bang one of these out every week, ready or not.
Yep.
And we're clearly not hiring
editors,
video professionals,
interns.
All this stuff, because we want to be on the inside and understand how this works and what works and how it goes. And so one of the things I first to say, in theory, we're going to get better over time, but maybe not. But we're going to keep trying to do this well because we're intrigued by creating content and intrigued by the way you can influence people in a variety of different ways and have conversations and relationships with people you wouldn't have expected.
Yeah.
So then for whoever is encountering this in podcast land or YouTube land or video land, is if you always want to stay safe and you always want to do something you're good at, you're going to have a very limited playing field. And the way to grow your career, the way to grow your organization, the way to grow generally is take a risk. And anybody who is afraid of taking a risk or not looking perfect, One thing that is brutal is watching video, because I got to tell you, no matter how hard I write myself a note to stand still, I still am moving around constantly. And
Like you're on a basketball.
it's like, I stand still, Thomas. Come on, you can do that. No, I can't, apparently. And all the things that we want to be better at in execution will come from doing.
Yeah.
And
so if you're a
fundraiser, if you're a major gifts person, if you're a nonprofit executive, you can't play it safe. You have to step out, and you have to be willing to just not look perfect. And we're modeling not looking perfect.
Yeah.
So
we got that covered. Right?
It is impossible to get better and look good at the same time. Write that on a Post-it note. Put it on your mirror. Put it on your phone where you see it every time you open your phone. Whatever you can do to remind yourself it's worth the risk, not because you want to look bad, but because you want to be better at what you do. James Clear.
Put it on a calendar reminder.
Yeah.
So that's the title, and have it show up mid-November.
Yeah.
Because mid-November, as long as it's a weekday, you're going to need to remember that. Mine is about the guy who invented Flamin Hot Cheetos, the spicy, fingered, ruining
Orange
snack.
fingery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You didn't bring any, did you?
No, I couldn't handle them.
You sort of have a...
I don't like my fingers get messy, but heat, I don't mind heat. I mean, I'm from the South, but the Flamin' Hot line is too much. It's just like napalm. But this guy started as a janitor, and the CEO, this is back in the, 70s, at Frito-Lay. And he was working as a janitor, and he had a really good work ethic. And his grandfather told him, you make sure they know a Mendoza swept that floor today.
Because it's nobody swept the floor better.
Nobody done that.
Nice.
And they got a new CEO, and he was spreading the word. His theme was, everyone owns this company. Everyone is CEO of Frito-Lay. If you have an idea, I don't care what your day job is, you work that idea up the chain.
Nice.
He took that to heart, and he came up with, he realized there wasn't a snack that emulated the spice and blend that he grew up with. And his people were making in his neighborhood on their own. They were blending their own spices and shaking stuff up. And,
nice.
And he knew people from Mexico that were his friends that had that. And so he's like, there's a big market here.
A niche we
There's
haven't
a lot of
gotten into.
people.
Yeah.
And so he thought of the idea. He kind of blended some stuff. He called and talked to the CEO's secretary, scheduled a meeting. He came and presented to this big board, and they loved it. And he rose up through the ranks. And then you've heard of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. They've got Flamin' Hot
everywhere.
Everything in Frito-Lay has a Flaming Hot
Something.
brand. It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Except it's not true. So
It's not.
it's not true. And I'm basing this because we're not lawyers and we'd really rather not pay for one. I'm basing this off an LA Times article.
There you go.
So they say they did extensive research. Google LA Times Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
If you're suing anybody, sue LA.
Sue the LA Times.
Yeah.
But he's got a book coming out. He's been doing speaking roles.
Telling this story.
Telling the story. There's a movie coming out based on his book, his story, but it's not true. Which is sad. We've all seen people take credit for something that they didn't do or they weren't a part of. But what's different about this, or is I guess the biggest learning from this, and then also does apply to fundraising, is that his real story was good. So he really was working towards the bottom. He was a machinist.
Okay.
In his story, I think
It's
he
not
quit
quite
school.
as good for his purposes as a janitor. Okay.
I think in his story, he quit school at 7th grade, and in real life, it was like 9th grade. So still really young. He's leaving school.
Yeah.
He's a machinist. He worked his way up. So he still ended up in a corner office. He was a VP in their vast marketing department. So that's extremely impressive. Just going from machinist to vice president of marketing at Frito-Lay.
Yeah, no small thing.
He then still did launch a brand.
Okay.
And a flavor. It was called Sabrositas, which I
Not
think
quite
I've
as
heard
catchy
of.
as Flaming.
I think I've heard. I think I've seen. It's not Flamin Hot Cheetos, but he did launch a brand that made it into. I think there were Dorito. There were a few lines that carried his flavoring. So he did a lot of his story.
Yeah.
And the lesson here is that your story, whatever story you're telling this month in this appeal or in this email or to a donor, your story is good enough.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And you don't need to embellish. There are times when you have to clean up a timeline and a donor doesn't need to know every single detail, but your story in and of itself is enough.
Yeah.
And if you tell about the work you're doing and the difference that donor's making, it doesn't matter that it wasn't Flamin Hot Cheetos and it was Sabrositas. The impact is still there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like a train wreck. I can't not look away, but at the same time, I'm ready for this movie to come out. I'm gonna buy that book.
And many people in fundraising have been wanting to tell a story of their work and tell it with power and emotion. And what they had wasn't all they wanted it to be. And maybe, hopefully you didn't, but I know people. It's
tempting.
Yeah, people get tempted by just add a little, put a little Flamin' Hot emotion.
Yeah, let's just sprinkle some Flamin' Hot on there.
So yeah, that's just painful. Cautionary tale.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale.
Oh, that's great.
But your work, your story, whatever your story is good enough.
Yeah.
Don't embellish.
There you go. I like that.
Well, this was episode 19 of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. On our next episode 20, which XX, the Roman numerals get really interesting from here on out. We're going to talk about why a box full of Nerf guns is the perfect donor validation gift. So tune in for that.
Don't miss that.
Don't miss that. Send in your questions, your comments, your ideas, segment ideas, anything to podcast@oneicity.com and give us those 3.5, 4, 5-star reviews.
Or a 6.
Or a 6. If you can find a way to do a 6, rate us twice. 2 5s would be great.
Yeah.
Just let us know. I'm Ryan Thomas.
I'm Steve Thomas.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Tune back in next week for another fresh episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast.